Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be really diving headfirst into this whole Tesla autopilot thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's been all over the news lately. And, on one hand, Tesla just got this big legal win.
Right.
But then on the other hand, there are all these ongoing investigations and lawsuits still happening. So
It's a mess.
it really is. So we're going to try to cut through all of the noise and figure out what's really going on with autopilot, what it can actually do, and, all the concerns people have about it.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there about what it can and can't do.
Totally. So let's start with that legal victory, huh? Tesla just dodged a bullet with that shareholder lawsuit about misleading investors about autopilot, right?
Yeah, the judge actually sided with Tesla on that one. But, and this is a big but, this doesn't mean Tesla is in the clear. One lawsuit getting dismissed doesn't erase all the other legal and ethical questions surrounding autopilot.
So it's not like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Exactly. It's more like they won this round, but the fight's not over.
I see. So what are some of the other legal battles they're facing right now?
Well, there are all these lawsuits from Tesla owners who are saying that basically the company made promises about autopilot that it couldn't keep.
Like what?
Like they gave people the impression that their cars could completely drive themselves.
Oh, wow.
When in reality, the technology just isn't there yet.
And these aren't just, like, fender benders we're talking about here, right?
Right. These lawsuits are the result of some pretty serious accidents.
Wow, so the stakes are high.
Incredibly high. I mean, we're talking about a technology that can literally have life or death consequences.
No kidding. So we've got these lawsuits, but then there are also those federal investigations, right? The NHTSA is looking into all this.
Yeah, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they're digging into autopilot's safety record. And let me tell you, some of the stuff they're finding is really unsettling.
Really? How so?
Well, for starters, they're reviewing hundreds of crashes that involved autopilot.
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
And 13 of those crashes were fatal.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the really scary part. The NHTSA thinks this is just the tip of the iceberg.
You mean there are even more crashes?
They estimate that they only know about 18% of autopilot-related crashes that get reported to the police. Wow, that's a chilling thought. So we've got all these legal troubles, federal investigations, and it seems like we're just starting to uncover how safe autopilot really is. It doesn't sound like that picture Tesla paints of their self-driving cars.
Not even close.
Yeah.
To really understand why autopilot is under so much scrutiny, we need to go deeper than just these lawsuits. We need to look at what's actually happening when people get behind the wheel of a Tesla with this technology.
Okay, so let's do that. So there's obviously a lot more to this autopilot thing than meets the eye. But I gotta ask, why is there so much controversy around this technology in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think a lot of it comes down to this disconnect between what people expect autopilot to be and what it can actually do.
You mean, like, people think it's way more advanced than it really is?
Exactly. It's like we see those Tesla ads. We hear Elon Musk talking about, full self-driving being right around the corner.
Right.
And we kind of get ahead of ourselves. We start thinking, oh, these cars can practically drive themselves.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the trouble starts. The NHTSA actually has a term for this. They call it a critical safety gap.
A critical safety gap. That sounds kind of ominous.
It is. It basically means that there's this big gap between how safe people think autopilot is and how safe it actually is.
Okay, so how does that gap actually play out in the real world?
Well, imagine this. You're cruising down the highway, autopilot's doing its thing, steering the car, keeping your speed. You start to relax a little.
Yeah.
Maybe you even glance at your phone
Yeah, I could see that happening.
and that's when it gets dangerous. Because autopilot isn't designed for that. It's not meant to completely take over driving. It's supposed to help you drive.
Right, so it's more like a co-pilot than an actual pilot.
Exactly. It can handle some things on its own, but it still needs you, the human driver, to be paying attention and ready to take the wheel if something happens.
So the technology itself isn't necessarily bad. It's more about how people are using it.
It's about how people are misusing it, really. They start relying on it too much, thinking it can do more than it can, and that's when accidents are more likely to happen.
Which brings us back to those NHTSA investigations.
Yeah.
They're not just looking at whether autopilot is malfunctioning, they're looking at how people are interacting with it.
And how those interactions are contributing to crashes. Because we humans, we're easily distracted, We get complacent, especially when we have technology that seems like it's doing all the work for us.
And that false sense of security can be really dangerous.
No doubt. And when you combine that with the fact that the NHTSA thinks they're only seeing a fraction of autopilot-related crashes, it paints a pretty concerning picture.
For sure. So we've got this critical safety gap because people expect more from Autopilot than it can deliver. But why is there so much hype around Tesla's systems specifically? Don't other car companies have similar technology?
They do, but Tesla's just got this, like, mystique around it,
Yeah.
you know? They've really leaned into this image of being this super innovative, cutting-edge company.
Yeah, they're always pushing the boundaries.
And that's definitely part of their appeal. But it's also created a situation where the excitement for their self-driving tech has maybe gotten a little ahead of what the tech can actually do.
I see. And then there's that whole thing about Tesla relying solely on cameras for their system, right? No LiDAR, no radar, just cameras and AI.
Right, and that's a whole other can of worms.
Right.
Some experts think it's brilliant that Tesla's approach could be the key to unlocking truly autonomous driving.
Interesting.
But then others are worried that relying solely on cameras is just too risky, especially in unpredictable situations like bad weather or, unexpected obstacles in the road.
So it's like a high-risk, high-reward kind of gamble.
Exactly. And in the meantime, you've got Elon Musk out there painting this picture of a future with robotaxis everywhere.
Millions of self-driving Teslas just out there on the roads, picking people up, making money.
And people are buying into it, right? It's a compelling vision. Who wouldn't want a car that could basically pay for itself?
Right. But it all hinges on this idea of achieving full autonomy, which, let's be honest, is still a long way off.
It is. And the question is, will Tesla be able to bridge that gap between the hype and the reality?
Will they be able to deliver on these promises of a self-driving utopia, or will it all come crashing down?
And more importantly, at what cost? Because at the end of the day, lives are at stake here.
It's like we're on the verge of something incredible with this technology, but, are we headed for that Jetsons future, or are things going to go a little sideways?
And that uncertainty, that's what makes this whole conversation so important. We're not just talking about Tesla here. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about transportation, about the very idea of letting machines make life or death decisions on the road.
Yeah, it makes you really stop and think.
Yeah.
But okay, let's back up for a second. Remember where we started this whole deep dive? We were talking about that legal win for Tesla.
Right, that shareholder lawsuit.
And at first it seemed like they were in the clear, but then as we dug a little deeper...
we found out it was just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Suddenly we're talking about multiple lawsuits from drivers, those NHTSA investigations, that whole critical safety gap issue.
There's a lot to unpack.
And then on top of all that, you've got Elon Musk with his grand vision of a robotaxi revolution.
Millions of Teslas driving themselves, changing the world as we know it.
It's a bold vision.
To say the least. But the technology to make it a reality, well, that's still a work in progress.
It makes you wonder, is Tesla's approach, going all in on cameras and artificial intelligence, is that going to get us there? Or is it just like a detour on the road to truly self-driving cars?
It's a question that's got the experts divided, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Only time will tell who got it right.
So where does that leave us? I mean, we've got all this groundbreaking technology, but there are regulations, ethical concerns, the limits of what's actually possible. It's a lot.
It's a complex landscape, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's one thing I hope you take away from all this, it's that the future of autonomous driving, it's not set in stone. It's being shaped right now by all of us, by the choices we make every day.
So what can we do? How do we make sure we're headed in the right direction toward a future where self-driving cars actually make our lives better, not more dangerous?
It starts with staying informed, asking tough questions, not just believing the hype, whether it's from Tesla or anyone else. Remember, technology is just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Powerful stuff. We have the power to shape this future. That's both exciting and a little intimidating.
It is, no doubt. But it's also a huge opportunity. We have the chance to build a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
I like the sound of that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but this conversation is far from over. We hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about as we navigate this exciting and often uncertain world of autonomous driving. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.